Hello everyone, this is John with Out of Isolation with another episode, and I once again am joined by Hugo.
Remember me? G'day, how we doing?
We are coming to you live today from St Kilda and Balaclava. Myself, I'm here on Carlisle Street over here. Hugo, where are you?
I am in Ackland Street, the main drag of St Kilda.
It's an amazing neighborhood, definitely worth checking out. The main thing that I would like to show you right here though, I just started with my back facing, but I'll get across, is some of the amazing bakeries in this area. Melbourne has some of the best Jewish bakeries in the world because a lot of people after World War II right here were actually using Melbourne as a place to come after the horrors of the Holocaust. As a result, we have this incredible Jewish culture. There's actually an entire Jewish Museum of Australia in this neighborhood, but what's better than a museum than to eat your way to the culture here? Right here is Glick's, one of my favorite places to go for a bagel or baked good. One thing you have to be aware of though, if you're coming by this shop, is that you want to watch out for Friday, because Friday afternoons are the time when everyone's preparing for the holy day, for Saturday. And so you'll have lines out the door, both at Glick's and also next door right here at Denelli's, which is now behind me. Denelli's is my favorite place to go for like a nice pastrami sandwich. What have you got down in your neck of the woods, Hugo?
Yeah, well, I'm just slowly walking down to one of my favourite cafes in all of Melbourne, in fact, a place called Monarch's Cakes, and this is again connected to that Jewish heritage we have here in St Kilda, particularly those Eastern European Jewish culture. So Polish in particular is the connection to Monarch's, and Monarch's I love because it's like walking into a cafe that's kind of stopped in time, and their most famous cake, if you're down here, okay, you need to get the Kugelof. It's this amazing chocolatey, spongy Polish cake, and I'm so hungry, I think I'm going to get one right now. But we're going to go actually jump in and see Nikki, and you can see this cafe that's kind of stuck in time from about the 1950s. So just approaching now, and we'll go in and have a look.
While you do it, I'll also mention that one of my things that I always had when I was giving tours in St Kilda is that whenever I had Germans on my tour, they would always correct my pronunciation of that word. So
I'm probably saying it very wrong.
Yeah,
how's your pronunciation?
Mine's Kugelhauf.
Okay.
Kugelhauf. We need Germans to come on here and tell us how to do it properly, because I would try every variant of it when I gave tours in this neighborhood, and I never seemed to get it right.
Well, here's the famous.
The best.
Oh, there we go. The best. This lady's saying. That's the baby Kugelof, just in there. So I'm going to go in and have a look. And yeah, this is Monarch's. Isn't it fantastic? It's this little place that's stuck in time. There's been many celebrities who have come into Monarch's. I'm sure eaten more than a few Kugelofs in their time. So yeah. I'm just going to grab one right now, in fact.
While Hugo's doing that, I'll just say that the shop is such an amazing place. It dates back all the way to 1932, and the pictures of it.
Grab a Kugelof if I could.
Sure.
Sorry,
what
John.
Size are you after?
Just the baby
it.
one for me. Yeah. It's really important to still be supporting those small businesses that are still running in Melbourne, and so much of Melbourne's culture stems down to its food and cafe culture. And we owe a lot to the immigrants in particular, those migrants who have come in that post-war and war migration who brought cafe culture to Melbourne, because before that the food scene was pretty ordinary. Oh, they've just asked if I want it warmed, and yes is the answer. If you ever get that question, yes, warm. Thank you. Oh, sorry, go on, John.
Oh yeah, so I was just saying that my favorite part about that shop as well is if you ever get a takeaway cake, they have a picture of the shop from how it used to be. It's an old black and white picture, and it looks just about identical to how it looks today. It's an amazing place.
Is that it? There you go. Oh look, a big Kugelof. Ooh.
Can you see the cheesecake as well? Make sure to get a shot of that cheesecake that's in there.
Traditional Polish cheesecake, 100-year-old recipe. Look at that.
Can't go wrong with that.
Absolutely.
It's one of those few coffee shops that also stays open like past 3 p.m. One of the complaints for a lot of people like me who work later hours is that a lot of cafes here close at 3 or 4 o'clock. This one stays open into the evenings, and that street outside on called Ackland Street is one of the main kind of thoroughfares. You can grab a coffee even into the evening hours there. And it's an amazing place to watch the world go by.
Ooh, okay. I've got my Kugelhof, takeaway only, of course, and
Of course.
gonna head out.
Very good. Well, the bakeries here are incredible, and Hugo, if you walk along, you can actually. I don't know if the other windows have the cakes in them. I can only hear you. I can't see you right
they
now.
have the cakes. Here we go. Have a look at some of these beauties. Ooh. Ooh.
It's a great place to come also for people who aren't originally from Australia, because it's the kind of place where you can learn about some of the things that are so Australian. It took me a while after I moved here to understand just the kind of how much people loved a lamington, for example, or a pavlova. These are things that are just part and parcel with being in Australia, but you can experience all of them on this shop. How's it taste?
Well, I'm just about to get stuck in. I'm not sure if is eating on camera looking good, John? Is that?
Yeah, man. Go for it. We need to get. It's called the bite and grin, isn't it?
Bite and grin. Okay.
Yeah, just like on the old TV ads. You know, you gotta really look satisfied.
Well, there'll be no acting for looking satisfied. Let me just find a place to put this down. It's hard holding up an iPad and trying to open a Kugelhof and eat it at the same time, John. I'm just
production, man. High production values. Do you want me to tell? I can change the subject while you get yourself situated there.
No. Here we go. I've got it.
All right.
Oh, here she comes. Ah, I've got it. There it is. Famous Monarch's Cake Kugelhof. Let's get stuck in there. What was it? The bite and grin? What do we call it?
Yeah. Bite and grin.
Bite and grin.
Just like in the TV commercials.
Here we go. Alright, dude.
Well,
Cool as ever.
Well, we give Hugo some time to enjoy that. I'm going to jump into my favorite story about this area. It's a little bit of a longer one, so Hugo, maybe will be enough time for you to properly enjoy that cake.
I might save it for later, if that's all right.
If that's what you want. Well, the thing that I want to point out here is there's a ship that comes right. This is the main train station if you're in St Kilda here. Not the trams. We have the 96 tram, the 16 tram, a bunch of trams that come down here. But this is our train station, Balaclava Station, at Carlisle Street. And if you look closely, you'll be able to see a ship right on there. And if you're ever up here, you might be able to make out those letters that say Lady of St Kilda. That there is commemorating one of the things that created St Kilda in general. So to tell you the story of how St Kilda began, we have to go back nearly 300 years to a man named Lord Grange. There's a guy 300 years ago in Scotland who was horrible to his wife. His wife was accusing him of adultery in public, which is not what you did in that time. And so Lord Grange took his wife out to an island called St Kilda, just off the coast of Scotland. The island St Kilda was called St Kilda because of a shield. The Norwegian word for shield was skilda, and somewhere in history it got mistranslated by a map maker who probably saw a blot of ink on a map between the S and the K and assumed that skilda was St Kilda, and the name of this island's changed. So 300 years ago, Lord Grange took his wife out to punish her for spreading rumors about him. Rumors which may have been true, but he put her out on this island and he left her there in exile for nearly a decade. As a result of this, Lord Grange got to be known all over the island as just a really kind of mean husband. So decades after that, another Lord Ackland, came along. He got married, and he and his wife had a honeymoon, and they went out to the same island, to St Kilda. And when they left the island, they wanted to commemorate their happy honeymoon, but they had this dark sense of humor, and so they decided to name their ship a double entendre. They named the ship Our Lady of St Kilda, because it referred both to the newly married happy Lady Ackland, but also the poor Lady Grange who'd been stuck there all those years before. This ship, named the Lady of St Kilda, made its way slowly but surely down to the Port Phillip Bay, and it made landfall in an area which was being called by the English Ferrum at the time. And over time, the locals just started calling it St Kilda. And that's where St Kilda gets its name, and that's why that ship is up there today. I'm just going to adjust my camera here real quick, having some technical difficulties with the gimbal today.
I wonder if anybody watching this has actually been to the St Kilda in Scotland.
Oh man, it's a pretty remote island out there. Today it's uninhabited.
Less cake shops out there, John, you reckon?
A lot less, and I would encourage anyone who has been out there to please let us know, because last I checked it was inhabited just by birds nowadays.
there's a few seagulls around here though, so you know we're not missing out too much.
Yeah, all right. Where are you now, Hugo?
Well, I'm actually making my way down. I dropped my wallet, so let's pick that up first, and then we'll do a pickup.
Yep.
That's biz in the industry for
some insider jokes there.
There we go. I didn't drop my Kugel off though, which is more important. Well, I'm making my way all the way to the other end of Ackland Street. I'm now on the Esplanade. The Esplanade was a place originally where some of the nicest and most elegant stately homes, or weekend homes, for Melbourne's early wealthy people. Now, there's always been this bit of north-south divide in Melbourne. The north, traditionally very working class. The areas like Collingwood and Carlton and Fitzroy were areas that you would really only be in if you couldn't afford anywhere else to be. And south of the river was always the much more desirable spot, especially down by the bay. Now, before the invention of motor cars, you would have people having their weekend homes down St Kilda and down on the Esplanade. Some of those more original homes still remain, but a lot of them unfortunately have been knocked down. Now, the main thing I wanted to talk about right here though, look at that big face, or big mouth. Now that is Luna Park. Where would you find some other Luna Parks in the world, John?
Luna Park's also in Sydney, and there were a bunch of others. There was still one. The initial one was in Coney Island.
Coney Island,
but there used to be more. Slowly but surely, they went out of business, and so now the two most iconic ones today are right in front of you and in Sydney, underneath the Harbour Bridge.
Yeah, the most famous aspect of Luna Park, of course, is the entrance there, but it's also what you can see behind me there. Whoa! Now that's not a roller coaster. That is a great scenic railway. Woohoo! I can't get it all in frame. Not since I was a child, but I remember it being very bumpy. It's someone's job, just one person who has to walk around that track every day and make sure that it's safe. And trust me, it still is, but it's been operating for over 100 years. Quite incredible.
Well, something that people aren't going to be able to see as much on these videos is that we are two pretty tall guys.
Oh yeah.
You're taller than I am, and I'm 6'4". How tall are you?
6'6". That's 2 meters in the new money.
Yeah. Well, and so it's a bit of a challenge to get in there, but I did it. My mom and sister came down, and we went on the Great Scenic Railway, and my knees took a bit of a punishment for it, but it was incredible. First off, when you go on this thing, it's the only still remaining handbrake operated roller coaster in the world. And what that means is that the operator for the roller coaster actually stands up in between the two carriages, and they have a big brake that they pull back to keep you from flying off the tracks. And so it's pretty insane when you watch this. At the Luna Park, all the time we'll get calls to emergency services of people concerned for the safety of people on the roller coaster because they think someone has climbed out and is standing up. That's just how the ride operates. So it's a really innovative, well, not even innovative, it's the opposite of innovative. It's the old school way of running a roller coaster. And it's so atmospheric. It's a place that I always encourage people to go check out because it's just something that time has forgotten. We don't have roller coasters like this. Everyone's all about their big steel roller coasters, but a roller coaster like that has such character to it. And I'll tell you what, even though the drop when you go down is scary, the best part is when you reach the peak, because when you look around you, you have one of the most incredible views of Port Phillip Bay.
Wow. Thank you. Just while I'm here, I just wanted to point out one of the best live music venues in Melbourne. It just went under a big multi-million-dollar renovation just a couple of years back, the Palais Theatre. You see that over there. St Kilda has a rich history of supporting musicians. Some of the best artists in Australia have had some of their formative years here in Melbourne. John, I'm thinking of one in particular. Can you tell me which Australian band? I am indeed. And one of many. St Kilda was big in the punk music scene in the 60s and 70s. It's gone through this odd kind of transition period, St Kilda. Today, it's mostly known as Melbourne's playground, very family-friendly area, but also full of one demographic in particular, John. Younger British backpackers in particular. You'll see them all down the beaches here, and you can usually tell they're backpackers because they're not wearing sunscreen, and usually on their second day they're bright pink because they've just arrived in Australia. They've got no idea how hot the sun and how strong the UV is, and they look like lobsters after a few days.
Well, something that I always like to say about this area is I think there's like a three-way culture clash that's been happening in St Kilda for quite a long time. You've got those backpackers who love coming down here for the beachy area. But then you also have these St Kilda lifers, because St Kilda has been an area that's been pretty rough. There's actually an entire television series here in Australia called Underbelly, where the first series of the TV show was all about the gangs of St Kilda. And even like in the last 20 years, the gangland murders were something that everyone in Melbourne kind of followed and knew about, but the people who have lived through that are pretty hardy people. It's a pretty strong community feel in this area. But then on top of that, you've got the third segment of people, which are upperly mobile, wealthy people who can come down and get very expensive apartments. And so the property values in St Kilda have changed tremendously. And so I think that this area is like such a tide pool of just people coming in and going out, and it makes a kind of electricity to the neighborhood that I really appreciate about the place.
Yeah, well, if that hasn't convinced you to come to St Kilda for a day or longer, then I don't know what will.
Well, one last thing before we wrap up this video here is I want to show what's right behind me, which is my favorite building away from the beach, which is the St Kilda Town Hall just behind me. It's just on the corner of Carlisle Street and St Kilda Road. You see St Kilda Road just behind me over this way, and it's one of these beautiful Gold Rush era buildings. It's a time when the buildings all trying to one-up each other, and so as you look around, everything from the Melbourne City Centre Town Hall to the Fitzroy Town Hall to the St Kilda Town Hall are all, and the Richmond Town Hall as well, they're all trying to compete to be more and more impressive. And so that's why you have this grandiose Gold Rush architecture behind you. Definitely worth your time to come down with normal and check out some amazing architecture. That's for you today, guys. My name is John. Hugo, I'll let you take us out.
Yeah, well, that was John. I'm Hugo. Thanks very much for tuning in to Out of Isolation, and we will see you shortly.